decadence and anarchy, he said, he smiled. Something to dance to.
So here's a bit of a weird one, all right? Are you still with me at the back? Good, because I don't want to. Well, I'm always happy to launch a personal vendetta against politicians who deserve it, but this is literally only just popped in front of me, and I've checked the provenance of it, and it's a photograph of the Tory leader of Dartford Council cutting the ribbon on another food bank, surrounded by people who are, I've posted the picture, actually. You can see it on my Twitter, at Mr. James OB, or you can go to the Mayor of Dartford's Facebook page, where there are, a dozen or so photographs of what looks like great joy and hilarity, frivolity. It looks more cheerful than a LBC staff party. I mean, this is an astonishing jamboree, and it's just stuck in my craw a bit, and I think I know why. The idea of celebrating the opening of a food bank seems very odd, doesn't it, at first glance? But is it actually? I mean, if you needed a food bank and they opened one near you, that would be a cause. Do you see what I mean? I think I don't. It's one of those subjects where I'm slightly worried about articulating myself properly in case I say something that I haven't really thought through. This is the danger, I suppose, of building the first topic on the programme around something that just popped up on my social media feed 10 minutes ago. But here's the thing. All right, let's just do it straight. Actually, I don't need to overthink it, do I? Or inflict one of my interminable monologues upon you, although it is already 10:10. So, should it be celebrated? Have a look at the picture on my Twitter, at Mr. James OB. Go and have a look there. It's been tweeted by the constituency Labour Party secretary in the same area. So there's clearly a political game afoot, if you like. But the picture just really... And look, I'd be having the same conversation if it was politicians from a different party, if it was Liberal Democrats or Labour politicians. And perhaps you will say to me that you can't quite imagine Labour politicians chuckling their heads off or grinning like Cheshire Cats at the camera as they open a... that's interesting. They've just literally deleted the cheerful-looking photos from their Facebook page. What, since I started talking? Oh. Wow. What can we do next? I think I should do a different laugh. I think I should do this one. They've just deleted the especially cheerful-looking photos from their Facebook page, but you can still see it on my Twitter, at Mr. James OB. And that is... I guess, unfortunately, in a way, they've possibly answered the question for us. Should you really be celebrating the opening of a food bank? The people who were celebrating it, the minute I asked that question, such as the power we wield these days, have now deleted all of them, all of the cheerful photos, all of the grinny ones, or just most of... But I still think it's a question worth asking, because if you were in need of a food bank, then the opening of a food bank would be good news. There was also, of course, that astonishing vox pop in the last election, where people revealed they were going to be voting Conservative because they had more food banks now than they did under Labour. As if that was a reason to actually... Do you see what I mean? And then, of course, you've got the great haunted mewling pencil himself, Jacob Rees-Mogg, claiming that he finds food banks uplifting, which is pretty much the definition of what that old hymn writer was banging on about when he talked about the rich man in his castle, the poor man at his gate. God made them high and lowly and ordered their estate, as if any omniscient, omnipotent deity would be responsible for putting Jacob Rees-Mogg at the top of a society and your Auntie Doris at the bottom of it. I mean, it just doesn't even merit thinking about, does it? So... Simple question, don't hold back, you'll get on air if you ring in. Is the opening of a food bank something that should be celebrated in Boris Johnson's Brexit Britain? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I'm not suggesting for a minute that the necessity for a food bank is something that should be celebrated. I think it's an absolute tragedy. I think it's a national disgrace that so many people are going hungry and relying upon charity to... survive, to eat. But the actual opening of one, for the people that need it, I think could be construed, in a sense, as good news. Or am I already bending over backwards to try and give the benefit of the doubt to people who struck me when I saw them this morning as unspeakably ghoulish? Let's find out. 0345 6060 973. And the second bit of the question, because it's never that binary or easy on this programme. Question number 1, should the opening of a food bank ever be celebrated? I mean, even the cutting of a ribbon is pretty gross, right? Would you have an opening ceremony for a food bank? 0345 6060 973. But what I want you to also do is talk to me about the mindset of people that would do this. And we seem to be spending a lot of time lately trying to get inside other people's minds. I think it's really important. You need to understand people that you disagree with. You need to know where they're coming from to work out whether they're in the wrong or you are. So this would have been committed. There would have been meetings. This is, just off the back of last week's council elections. Let's have a ribbon, right? And let's get the leader of the council to cut it with some ceremonial scissors, and everyone else gather round looking really cheerful because we're opening a new food bank in Dartford. I'm not going mad, am I? This is just flipping disgusting. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need if you can disagree with me, agree with me, or explain to me the mindset that is in play here. The decision that we're going to have a party of sorts, an opening ceremony, a ribbon-cutting moment to mark the opening of a food bank, and all of the people there look as if they've just won the lottery. That was what I was searching for. It looks like a lottery photograph. Everyone's really happy. Instead of a cheque in front of them, they're holding a ribbon and a pair of scissors, but everybody looks like they've just won Euro Millions, and they're opening a food bank, which I presume none of them are ever going to need. What is going on in our country? This is like something out of Charles Dickens, isn't it? This is like the fellas that used to run the workhouses being feted as great altruists or philanthropists or to the benefit of the society. What is going... This is... Well, you don't want to put words into your mouth, but it all looks a little bit Victorian to me. It may be that the most interesting element of this question proves to be the second bit. It's often the case, isn't it, that funny little complications I throw into proceedings can often be the most fruitful and fertile ground for us to explore together. But how could anybody have thought having an opening ceremony for a food bank with everyone grinning at the camera would be a good idea? Talk me through that mindset, because it currently eludes me. Sal's in Paddington. Sal, what do you make of this?
Good morning.
Hello.
As someone who is about to be registered with a food bank for the first time, I wouldn't mind reading that such a thing had opened,
yes,
which would be give me a sense of relief. But to celebrate the fact that it's even necessary, I think, is an embarrassment.
And I mean, one presumes that there's a sort of political goal in play here as well. I mean, the leader of the Tory leader of the council is there for a photo opportunity.
We are providing something. Isn't that brilliant? Well, actually, no. What would be brilliant would be to provide a society where people such as myself aren't needing to use food banks and are required to rely on the charity of others in order to survive.
It is Victorian, isn't it? That's the point here. Your phraseology there better than mine. Required to rely upon the charity of others, and you should jolly well be grateful for it.
I'm a member of the undeserving poor because
exactly
I'm disabled and can't work full time.
Yes.
That's all right. It's not your fault.
No, and it's also not something that anyone should be ashamed of. Can I ask about, I mean, what's happened to push you into this position lately or not? It's entirely up to you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I've got a genetic condition called Behçet syndrome, which is an inflammatory disorder. I also have hemiplegic migraines, which means that I can have really bad migraines that basically have the effect of having a mini stroke.
Oh, God. Okay.
Which makes it a bit difficult to hold down a job.
Well, we wouldn't want you flying planes, would we, necessarily?
No, absolutely. Well, neither would I. I'm not great with heights. But, but that doesn't stop me from being able to use my brain.
Of course not.
The problem that, I'm Cambridge graduate. I enjoy thinking, debating, discussing things, but being able to actually to work regularly when I don't know, if tomorrow I'm going to end up in the situation where for 2 or 3 weeks I might not be able to use the left-hand side of my body.
I see.
Not really a great job prospect.
No, inspired by your sort of sang-froid about it all, actually, Sal, and the fact you could throw a quick gag in the middle of this conversation is a credit to you. What is the process if you don't? Because some people are still a little bit ignorant. When you say you've been referred to a food bank for the first time, can you just talk us through what that means?
Who runs the food bank that you are trying to sort of sign up with? But this is going to put a cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah.
For me, I spoke to my GP's practice, and then the social prescriber contacted the food bank, gave them my details, and scheduled a phone call for 3:30.
Why would that put the cat among the pigeons? That seems a perfectly reason. Oh, because the GP is having to refer you to a charity.
Exactly,
God,
and some people can't. And this is another thing. Everyone goes, "Oh, I can't see a GP." It's like, well, why are they actually having to make referrals like this, as opposed to
God, you're right.
Actually having social care or social services? I've been waiting a year and a half to get a adult social care assessment.
Right
now, given that there are times when I literally can't move out of bed because half my body isn't working. That means that I'm reliant on family and friends.
Of course.
Now, COVID, highly vulnerable, that made everything really quite difficult.
I'm sure it did. Of course it did, because people can't come and help you, and
absolutely,
the shielding and the isolation. So you've had a right.
And then if you get a delivery of food that requires too much preparation, or if I need to stand up for a prolonged period of time, thankfully it's a variable condition. So there are times when I'm mobile and can do things.
Sure.
That's brilliant. However, when I'm not, I'm really, really not.
No, and you really, really need help and support, and the GP recognises that, and the help and support in this context, this conversation is a referral to a food bank, which, of course, should not be necessary. And the fact that it's Conservative politicians having a right old knees up after 12 years of Conservative rule in a country which is now increasingly reliant upon charity and upon food banks, when, as Sal reminds us, this should be part of the infrastructure. I mean, it beggars belief, actually. Sal, take care, mate. And I hope you have a good run of not being poorly. I really do. But that constant threat must be incredibly draining. And I say it again, your levity is inspiring to me. And I'm sure to many other people listening. 22 minutes after 10. It's incredible, right? What's happened? I mean, the necessity of food banks is a national tragedy, but it is also better than not having any when we need them. But the idea that politicians, in this case the Conservative leader of Dartford Council, would think, I tell you what, let's get the photographer down there, a picture of me cutting a ribbon, everybody else smiling, and do we have a little cheer when it... sometimes when it's not in the news, it's so weird, this. You almost need it to be in the news to be the lens through which you look at stuff. You know, if I was of a slightly more dinosauric nature, I probably wouldn't be able to talk about things until they'd been in the newspapers. But you just see stuff sometimes and you think, hang on a minute, that's just not right. What's happened to us? What's happened to us? Hayley's in the Isle of Dogs. Hayley, what made you pick up the phone?
Yeah, hi. It's the first time I've spoken to you. How are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. Welcome aboard.
I am a single mum with 3 kids. I'm on universal credits. I also have one child receiving disability allowance.
Okay.
Haven't had the best few years, but thankfully I haven't needed to use a food bank. I've got family and I manage. But I do know a lot of people that use food banks, and often there's a shame associated that they have, which they shouldn't have, but they do. Yeah. But I think it's absolutely ludicrous that they're spending money on an opening party for
I don't know if they spent any money on it. I mean, apart from expenses to get there and back and the price of a big red ribbon, I don't know that it would have cost anything. But
so I think if there's no cost, that's, I'd say the cost, should really be going into helping people that are in need. But I think it shouldn't be something to celebrate. Is there no argument at all? And
I'm being the devil's advocate here, but also I don't want this to be quite as gross a vignette of modern Britain as it currently looks. So I'm almost sort of trying to make it feel less awful than it currently feels. Is there an argument that this sort of publicity might chip away at that sense of shame that you just described? That if I'm sounding stupid, aren't I, Hayley?
Well, I mean, I think, as you referred to earlier, none of these people will ever need to use a food bank. They don't really understand what it feels like to have to use a food bank. And I think making it a celebration, knowing people that use food banks, I know from them that I don't think they would celebrate it. They would much rather not have to use one. So
what do you think went through their mind?
Maybe making the politician look good. I don't really know. I'm speechless. I can't see.
They've changed the whole thing now. There was a dozen pictures there of them all looking like they just won the lottery, and now it's a completely different selection of photographs. Someone's had a bit of a rollicking this morning, haven't they? But of course, the real offender here are the real offenders are the politicians who thought that this was appropriate, and they're in the pictures that have now been deleted, laughing their flipping heads off, grinning their faces off.
They were probably having a few beers when they organised the party. So
we don't even need to speculate on what might have been worse than what was photographed, because we can see it in front of us. I'm probably sounding a little bit craven when I say, do call me if you disagree. Do call me if you think that this is something that should be celebrated. And if you can't, then give me a call and tell me what's happened to us. How can any elected official from a party that's been in charge for 12 years think that the opening of a food bank is something to be celebrated? It should be a political epitaph, not a photo opportunity, you bloody ghouls. Matt's in Plymouth. Matt, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I mean, you asked a question. Good morning, James.
Hello.
So I've listened for a while, and this is the first time I've been so angry.
It's infuriating you, has it?
Yeah. I've been homeless in the past a couple of times through sort of relationship breakdowns and mental health and other things, but I've had to use food banks in the past. It's not an experience that results in one smiling. So to see those photos of the Conservatives smiling as if it's a good thing, it should be celebrated to open a food bank. No, we should be celebrating when we get to close the food banks.
That's a long way off, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But, we should be celebrating that when the food banks close for good. That's when we should be having parties and celebrating, because we've reached a point in society where we no longer need them.
So the fellow with the scissors is Jeremy Kite, MBE no less, leader of the council, the Conservative leader of the council. Can the likes of you, can mere mortals like you and I, begin to understand the sequence of events that led to this photo opportunity? At no point did anybody in their circle say, I don't know if this is going to look good, lads. Come on, it's a food bank. You're cutting a ribbon on, not a bloody leisure centre.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I can't get my head around it.
No, neither can I. John.
And the idea that we should celebrate the closing of them is it's a bittersweet suggestion, that, because we seem to be needing more and more. In fact, that with the cost of living crisis, there's going to be an increased need for food banks. A lot of you are referring me back to those vox pops from Hartlepool during the last election campaign. I can't find them, so if you've got them to hand, tweet them to me, and we'll play them out on the radio. This is I can tell it's not the BBC. If it was the BBC, we'd have like 10 people sitting in some archive room somewhere doing it for us. We're too busy, all right? Keith's got buttons to press. Eleanor and Charlotte are trying to answer the phones, which are ringing off the bloody hook as usual. I can't do it on air because I get all distracted and I'll be talking to someone on the line while trying to find... So if you can find that footage, those vox pops, just tweet it directly to me, at Mr. James OB, and we'll play it out on the radio. Sarah is in Borehamwood. Sarah, what made you pick up the phone?
Hi, James.
Hello.
So our local MP is Oliver Dowden.
Oh, my commiserations.
Yes, yeah. And he took the same photo opportunity a few weeks ago for a food bank in Borehamwood.
Did he really? Turned up with the cameras?
Yeah, cameras.
I have to take your word for this. I've got no reason to doubt you, but I can't confirm it in a blink of an eye either. And
no, I've just looked. It's still up on his Facebook page for all to see.
How happy does he look? Because he's got quite an insipid face at the best of times.
Yeah, no, he looks happy as.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on? Are we all missing something here?
Well, this council, you wouldn't believe the fights we've had. Do you know Borehamwood at all, where the studios are?
Well, yeah, I've been to the studios in the olden days. I think did I do Pointless Celebrities there, probably? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
is that one of the ones there? And EastEnders is there as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. Good. So we've got a long history of studios in Borehamwood, and
of course.
plenty to be going on with. And they've just allowed Sky to build the biggest studio you could imagine, just along the A1.
Is that a bad thing? I mean...
It's on Greenbelt.
Oh, is Is it? Okay. Well, listen,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I can't go down these. I can't go down these. I can't go down. Oh, they've built a nasty new. But otherwise, the phones would ring off the hook, and we wouldn't necessarily get much done. So I'm just trying to find. Well, you tell me what's going on. Someone like...
The point is, the Tories just don't seem to care.
No, well, they do care. They care enough to have a little mini party or an opening ceremony.
And it's just, I just think it's obscene.
Yeah, well, I do as well, but I think like sometimes I don't normally mind having a show that is largely confined to people telling the truth and being decent. But on a day like today, I do wonder whether we need to hear an explanation of how anyone could think it's appropriate to celebrate the opening of a food
if they were opening a youth centre or, something like that, something that would actually be good for people. I mean, obviously the food banks are doing good, but they shouldn't have to be. They shouldn't be there.
Celebrate the closing of them.
Absolutely. Much like your last caller said, yeah.
Chris is in Milton Keynes. I cannot believe how grotesquely acceptable this is. All in the name of optics. Remind me to let off the party pooper the next time I see a dog flattened by a car. Disgusting. He refers to the cheerful celebrations in Dartford at the opening of a food bank. Claire in Warrington says, "Hi James, if you think that celebrating the opening of a food bank is bad, wait until you see Gove on the BBC taking the mickey out of the cost of living crisis using comedy voices." That sounds like something else that we need to pick up and play out. And of course, I haven't found the Oliver Dowden one that someone sent it to me, I'm not sure. But Steve Brine, it seems to be quite a popular pastime for Conservative politicians to be photographed opening food banks after 12 years of Conservative government. Jeremy is in Dartford. Jeremy, what would you like to say?
Well, hello, James. I'm the Jeremy in the photograph. I'm the leader of Dartford Borough Council, and it's me you're talking about.
Fantastic. Had you had exceptionally good news before the photographer turned up?
No, let me tell you what happened, James. And you don't know me, my friend, and I'm trying to be. I love my town. I love the people in it. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Yes.
We were invited yesterday to open. It's not actually a brand new food bank. It's a new location where there's been a lot of work put into it by the volunteers and others. There was actually a bit of a joke just before the ribbon was cut, and photographs will tell a snapshot.
What was the joke?
Moment. I think it was about the countdown. I think the countdown stuttered, and I think...
So you did a countdown and before you cut the ribbon?
Well, James...
At a facility for people who can't afford to feed themselves after 12 years of government by your party.
Well, let me just say, James...
you say what you want, Jeremy.
James didn't... Well, I can if I get a moment. Food banks didn't begin with a political party, James. They began many years ago. They began under a Labour council, Labour government.
I can't remember any parties being thrown when they weren't opening.
Well... This wasn't a party, James, and really, if it was thrown by the people who organise and volunteer.
Whose idea was the ribbon?
It was entirely the people who organised the event, and it was the person who runs the food bank.
You didn't think to say, "I'm not sure this is appropriate." It's a food bank that's feeding people that can't afford to feed themselves. It's not really something we should be celebrating. I mean, listen. The thing is, you can say here now. Do you know what? The reason why we've took the pictures down. Or the reason why the mayor, who I believe is one of your Conservative colleagues, isn't she? Yes. The reason why they've removed those pictures from the Facebook page is obviously because we looked at them and realised how utterly inappropriate it was. Or you can carry on trying to defend it against the backdrop of knowing that you've taken down the pictures in a panic. So you can't really have it both ways. Jeremy.
I appreciate. Listen, James. I know it's your name on the show, and you can say, but give me a moment just to say something. And
why did you take the pictures down?
I'll tell you why.
Yes.
It's because the comments underneath it have become political for the mayor's page. My understanding is the pictures are going back if they haven't already.
Excellent. We'll keep an eye out for them. How can it not be political if you're the Conservative leader of Dartford Council?
Because the comments were on the mayor's page. That's
but
why.
she was a Conservative councillor as well.
Well, there are plenty of Labour mayors out there, and they will tell you too, James, that the mayor...
I can't see any of them laughing like a drain at the opening of a food bank, Jeremy.
Well, James, you're taking a snapshot at the moment. I'm trying to
I can see 12, actually.
Let me ask you,
snapshots.
If you don't mind. Let me ask you...
It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, no,
so here's how it works. Well, what the hell were you thinking?
I was thinking that we've been invited by the organisers and volunteers of the food bank to come along. We have a long association with them. We've been funding them. We've been helping them, supporting them.
You should be standing there looking shamefaced. This is 12 years of Conservative government.
Well, the people in the back of the photograph, James, who are also laughing, were people who work at the food bank, volunteer at the food bank.
That's fine. They're not elected representatives of the party responsible for the cost of living crisis.
And I'm trying to make the point, James, that we are working... Well, I'm not responsible for that.
No, you're an elected representative of that party, Jeremy.
I'm a local councillor.
So you turn up... Let me give you some free advice, all right? I'll play the role of Malcolm Tucker. I'll play the role of Malcolm Tucker. What you do when you turn up at the opening of a food bank, you say, it's a crying shame that this is necessary, but I want to applaud the efforts of all the people trying to plug the holes in the basic requirements of human decency that have been blown wide open by people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, Michael Gove and Boris Johnson. And frankly, I'm ashamed to be a member of the same party as them, because the necessity of food banks is so immense that the fact that anyone could call them uplifting is a national shame. There you go. You can have that for nothing.
Have you? I mean, the Malcolm Tucker analogy is interesting, because I think that's what's happening here, actually. And we're losing contact with real people and their real situations.
Real people. Well, I speak to real people all day, every day, and every single one of them thinks this is gross.
I'm an elected council leader in Dartford. I love my town. I love the people. I'm trying very hard to support people through difficult times. We did during the pandemic. We're doing it now. Visiting food banks, opening food banks, supporting food banks, discussing with members yesterday.
No one is disputing. The pictures still haven't been changed. Listen, no, you can go off on your party political broadcast.
It's not, have I talked about politics at all?
You know, and I know.
You're the only one talking about politics.
You know, and I know that this is a really, really bad look. Why don't you just say so, and then we can all go home happy?
Well, I would ask.
And next time they open a food bank, don't cut a ribbon, Jeremy.
Why don't you ask the people who invited us and who took the photograph? It wasn't a photo opportunity. I didn't decide to have a photograph taken. It was taken by the director.
I get asked for photographs all the time. Some circumstances are appropriate, some are inappropriate. You don't do it. You don't say, as an elected member of a council, as an elected politician in a part of the country where they need a food bank to feed people who can't afford to feed themselves, you don't say, oh, pass the scissors, I'll cut the ribbon now. You just don't do it, man.
But what about the... Hang on, you have no view of the people who invited us yesterday, who were perfectly happy and welcoming.
No, it's the ribbon and the scissors and the laughing that's the problem, not the fact that you opened it. And then I'll ask you again, why have you taken the pictures down? Why have you taken the pictures down?
They will go back. I promise you they'll go back. I promise you they'll go back.
I'm watching the page.
When are they going back up? To do this.
When are they going back up?
To do this. Don't hector me, James.
I'm not hectoring you. I'm asking you when they're going back up.
You're not allowing me to get a word in. And
you've had several words in. When are the pictures going back up?
They're going up very soon. There's an instruction to put them back up, and they will go back up.
Right.
Let me just say. Will you just give me a minute?
Yes, of course I will. Yeah, absolutely. Carry on.
I didn't need to phone. My phone lit up this morning because it appeared on LBC, and I wasn't listening to it. And I rung in. But let me just have a minute just to say this. The necessity of food banks is a real scar on our country, okay? Nobody wants to see people in the situation. But I met many of the clients yesterday, and the conversations I had with the people who ran the food bank yesterday was, how can we civilise this? How can we improve this? How can we make this more of a helpful situation for the people who are there in other things? Actually, it's not just the food bank they're running. They're running signposting advice on homes, homelessness.
No one is disputing the decency of the people that run these places.
But they set
it's
up
the
event
political necessity of them that is shameful, and the fact that an elected... You see, the thing is, you can start bleating about not being allowed to speak, and then you go off around the houses. The conversation we are having, and that my listeners are... The conversation my listeners are engaged in, which you have sought to contribute to, is one about how on earth elected representatives... How on earth could elected representatives have thought it was appropriate to laugh, smile and celebrate the opening of a food bank?
Because the organisers of the food bank thought it was appropriate, and that's where they invited us. Okay. The gentleman there, who's a fantastic guy, a friend of mine.
And you didn't think to say there's no way that we should be taking photographs of everybody laughing. Cracking jokes. If the people, you don't know cracking jokes. If the people at the food bank volunteering for it, running it, organising it, thought it was appropriate, then frankly, as a guest, it's not for me to suggest that I would not do this and not do that. You should have asked the clients.
I did actually speak to many clients yesterday.
Did you ask them how they felt about a celebratory ceremony?
I think they're very...
Because the ones that ring me are ashamed to be seen in these places.
Okay. Well, I understand that, and that's exactly why the conversation with the volunteers, helpers and organisers yesterday was so deep about these issues. How can we help? How can we improve the process? How can we get out of this?
You're blaming the organisers then?
Well, we were invited, James, and we went, James.
Last chance, Jeremy. Was it a mistake, do you think, to be laughing and smiling while you were cutting the ribbon at the opening of a food bank?
I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased to have gone there yesterday. They're great people.
It's not what I asked, I'm afraid. Was it a mistake to be photographed smiling and laughing and cutting a ribbon while opening a food bank?
I think it would have been rude and a mistake not to do what they asked us to do yesterday.
They didn't ask you to laugh and smile and crack jokes, did they?
Well,
was it a mistake to be photographed laughing while you cut a ribbon at the opening of a food bank?
It would have been. I have no responsibility for when a photograph
was it a mistake to be photographed laughing when you cut the ribbon at the opening of a food bank?
It would have been a mistake to not do what they asked to do, James.
Yes or no?
It would have been a mistake to not do what they asked.
So it wasn't a mistake to be photographed laughing. No one asked you to laugh, did they?
Well, laughing is an involuntary response which involved all of the volunteers and the organisers.
It's an involuntary response to funny things, and there's nothing funny about the opening of a food bank.
You need to speak to the organisers about that and ask whether they also.
I'm speaking to you because you're the one front and centre in the photograph that I'm talking about. Was it a mistake to be photographed laughing and joking while cutting a ribbon at the opening of a facility designed to help people who can't afford to eat after 12 years of government by the party you represent?
I was very pleased to go there, James, and very pleased to do what you
Thanks for calling, Jeremy.
Thanks, matey.
Have a good day. I guess some things are just no laughing matter. I wasn't expecting to get anybody to defend the Conservative politicians photographed laughing and smiling as they held a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the opening or reopening of a food bank. But I suppose if we were going to get one person to try to defend that sort of conduct, it would have been the fellow with the scissors. And that is what you just heard. Fairly unanimous responses in the sense that it is utterly inexplicable how anybody could have thought it was appropriate to be photographed laughing and smiling while cutting a ribbon at a food bank. But we will continue to canvass opinion, and feel free to agree with the councillor if you wish. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. 10:49 is the time. Sam's in Leeds. Sam, what do you reckon?
Hi, I've got my Fitbit on. I better when I look at my heart rate later on, it's way up. I cannot believe that A, they had a ribbon to cut at a food bank anyway, and B, that anyone thought it was appropriate to advertise it like that. And we should be ashamed we've got food banks in Britain circa 2022. My sister's been to food banks. My sister's always borrowing money off my friends go to food banks. They're all ashamed and embarrassed. In fact, I said to my other friend the other week, do you want me to put him for and she went, no, I feel ashamed to get him to the doorstep. I said, well, I'll get him to come to my house and I'll bring it.
Is there any argument at all? And he's not the only one. In Oliver Dowden's defence, I've seen the photographs of him at a food bank, which I think he published himself because the photo credit says Oliver Dowden. But he's not grinning, he's not gurning at the camera, and he's not cutting a ribbon. But they are using food banks for photo opportunities.
Yeah, and political gain. Like we've got. Food
I don't
banks.
see how it can be political gain until you listen to that Vox Pop from the last election, where people said they were going to vote Conservative because there was more food banks. But I haven't been able to find that, so I'm going to give everyone a telling off. Is there any argument at all that these photo opportunities might make people feel less ashamed of going to them? And I'm not being
no, not by Tories. Definitely not by Tories. No, people would just feel because usually Tories have got the money and are quite wealthy and would never ever dream or even need to go to a food bank in a million years. So people. But
I don't need to go to a food bank. I won't need to go to a food bank in a million years. But I would love to make it feel less stigmatised for people that do need them.
I don't think you will. I don't think really anyone will, because people feel stigmatised at the mere fact that they need to go there. I think that's the thing. It doesn't matter who would say, come, we've got it's something that people are embarrassed about and ashamed to go to and will often only go as a last resort.
Is there any...
And the other thing, James, can I just ask you, did I hear him say, how can we civilise this?
Yeah.
Oh, so that was it. That's what got my heart going. That's what made me livid. How can we civilise this?
Well, look, I don't think he meant it like you've taken it. I think he meant it more like, how can we make it less shameful, didn't he?
Well, then he could have said that, couldn't he, instead of less
civilised.
Yeah,
I know he
that
could.
Makes it like
he didn't have to ring in. He didn't have to ring in, did he? It didn't go well, but at least he put his head above the parapet, as it were.
He did and embarrassed himself.
Well, some people might disagree. His mum might disagree.
Well, I'm sure, and his maybe his daughter, but you know.
Sam, take care. And watch that heart rate. It's just sad, actually, for me, more than enraging. It was enraging to start with, but then you hear it defended, and you just think, I live on a different moral planet. I live on a different moral plane from these people. It's just wrong. They know it's wrong. They take the pictures, although maybe they don't know it's wrong because they're going to put the pictures back up again. What are you doing today? We're going to a food bank. Why are you going to a food bank? Because it's reopening or it's moved premises, and we're going down to show support. No, we're cutting a ribbon, having a little ceremony. Listen, I'd rather do it differently. I'd rather be, photographed talking to some of the clients or talking to some of the volunteers. We can't have a ribbon cutting ceremony. You have ribbon cutting ceremonies at things that you're celebrating, like you're opening a new swimming pool or you're opening a new roller disco, I don't know, showing my age. You don't look at me like that. You don't have a ribbon cutting ceremony for a food bank. Tessa is in Ottery St Mary in Devon. Tessa, what would you like to say?
Oh, hi, James.
Hello, Tessa.
I must say I'm about your age, and this is the first time I have ever phoned into a radio station.
Look at that. Sensational.
Not just this radio station, ever.
No, well, I'm very flattered. Thank you.
And that's what this government has done to me. I would like to say I volunteer at a community larder, which is a sort of similar thing to a food bank, but not quite. And I think on a local level, it is something to be celebrated in that people helping each other from the community angle, helping each other.
I agree with you, and because the alternative is the absence of it. So, I mean, celebrate is an odd word. Perhaps welcomed would be better.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Celebrate is perhaps not the right word, but that community coming together and stepping in to help, not waiting for this government to help, but helping each other. And it's more than just food. It's, sometimes for our elderly population might be one of the only conversations that they have in a day.
Except
sorry,
that.
My daughter was just coming in the room.
I was about to get offended. I thought you were being distracted. I thought I was boring you. I thought you were getting distracted. What's your daughter saying? What are you doing, Mum? Put the phone down. Get off the radio, quick. What are you doing on the radio, Mum? It's outrageous.
I'm sorry. It would be the 1 minute she chose to try and find me.
Don't
but
worry.
yes, it might be the only time they get to speak to people. But I think from the look of the gentleman caller before, I think is a very bad look, and I think I think it just shows how completely out of touch the government are, and that trickles down, doesn't it, to all levels, how out of touch they are with this situation. And I think
it does.
It's a grim and a grotesque look from a government to be supporting food banks as any form of a win for society at all.
And you don't do a photo opportunity unless you think it's a form of a win. I think that's just a political truth, isn't it? You don't pose for photographs unless you think it's going to do you good. And maybe it does them good. And maybe that Vox Pop was prescient, the one where the people suggested they were going to vote Conservative because there were so many more food banks now than there were under Labour. It's a crazy time we live in. Tessa, a sparkling debut on the programme. I look forward to your second call, but don't wait 50 years to make that one. I may not be here. 10:55 is the time. Ian is in Market Harbour. Ian, what would you like to say?
James, great show.
Thank you.
It's along the lines of the last caller, really. How many people are out of touch? And it's just a decision-making process. For this to happen, someone would have had to have decided, is a celebration right? Who organises the press? Who organises diaries? What flunky is going out to buy the ribbon? Is there no one in all of these decisions that have to be made that says, hold on, is this right? In this day and age, we are celebrating a food shelter where there might be pensioners going for the first time, or working people.
No, I think there's something else going on here. Because someone's just sent me a reminder of Ian Duncan Smith in 2015 saying he welcomes food banks because it's a sign that decent people are helping those in difficulty. I think this is conservatism in action. I think they're delighted when people step up to do what the government should be doing, because it means the government don't have to do it and they won't need to raise taxes on rich people.
Well, celebrate a bank opening. Celebrate a restaurant opening.
A bank?
A bank, instead of a food bank.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
a restaurant.
Yeah, it's a useful amenity. No, I know.
I'm being told, yeah. Whatever next? Let's celebrate a debt recovery agency opening in the town.
Yeah.
Or a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Where does it end?
I don't know. I mean, but there's a psychological disconnect here. You heard the fella ring in, Jeremy. There is. I mean, he didn't. I honestly don't think it entered his mind, despite my best efforts, that there was anything wrong with this. Couldn't get past the idea that it just is going to reach some eyes as genuinely repellent, and it's going to reach other eyes as not just acceptable, but something to be encouraged.
I'm being sarcastic because it has got me going. They probably went out for a celebratory meal afterwards, or a council buffet was laid
We don't need to speculate. I'm not criticising you, but the evidence of our own eyes and ears is more than enough to arrive at valid conclusions here. We don't need to speculate on them doing things that would be even more disappointing or unwelcome. Teresa is in Rochester. Teresa, what would you like to say?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that Jeremy Kite is a crass and pompous man who is completely out of touch with what's happening in his own community. I've been on the South East Politics show with him, and he said he gives the government 8 out of 10. But that's him.
Oh, really?
James,
Honestly, you should have been doing my research before he rang in. 8 out of 10 for the government that has created the economic situation in which food
He
banks...
said that just after Sunak's spring statement on the same show.
So you obviously have more skin in this game than I do, Teresa. I demand full disclosure.
Well, what has happened? Yes, I'm a local Labour councillor, and I'm deputy leader of the nearby Medway Council. So I know Dartford well, and like us, there are a lot of problems with poverty. The issue that has happened here is the insidious creep of normalising poverty under the Tories.
Yes.
They have done it. And that's why he felt he could defend it, because he thinks it's normal and he thinks it's perpetuated. He believes it's a direction of travel. You know, the things that have been introduced are taking us back to the dark ages. We've got the household support fund that councils are being asked to distribute, which is effectively a sort of modern poor law. You've got to go cap in hand to the council, tell them your business, and somebody that doesn't know you will make a decision, and it's tough on those decision makers, by the way, about whether or not you're going to be given a household support grant to get you through not being able to afford your gas and electric, or food, or clothes for the kids.
I think you're right.
All of the things that are normal but have been crushed down.
This is the line, isn't it?
Poverty.
I used to hear the poor are always with us, and there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't. So there's no point trying to fix it.
That's why he thinks he can go to a food bank, have a laugh and a joke. You know, he should never have gone. It's nothing to celebrate. I celebrate the volunteers and their kindness, but they are actually victims of the same system. In fact, you know, most of the people who work and volunteer at food banks feel terrible about it, but they don't feel there's an alternative, and they don't believe that they can stop. That's how it's gripped us in society. I've volunteered at food banks myself.
Yes.
I give donations to food banks. I stand in the supermarket and ask other people to give donations to food banks, because there isn't an alternative at the moment, but there are real alternatives. It doesn't have to be like this. And everybody that's phoned in to say how embarrassed and shamed people unjustifiably feel going along are absolutely right, because it's not a one-step process, James. When you go to, you can't walk into a food bank. You've got to be referred there by somebody else.
And that's what Sal, the first caller, explained to us. I'm being sent now, I'm being bombarded. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. There's one over here of Dominic Raab taking a selfie of himself in a food bank. And, you know, I've been gaslit. You describe that word normalisation. I'm guilty. I hadn't registered before. It was something about... Obviously, I guess you just go further and further and further every time. So Dominic Raab takes a selfie, Steve Bryne's there, Oliver Dowden takes a photo opportunity. This clown in Dartford gets a ribbon out and they're all grinning at the camera, cracking jokes. It just goes up one stage. It's like the old boiling a frog thing, isn't it? And it suddenly, it took that for me to realise how abnormal this is. But now I'm looking back at all the other pictures of these politicians. I guess if you've got a sombre face and you're there, even if you're sticking out a photo opportunity, and I'm sure Labour politicians have probably done that as well, but it's celebrate
Well,
it?
look, if they have, shame on them.
Yeah,
and shame
true.
on everybody who has done that.
Don't celebrate opening food banks.
If you go to a food bank and you talk to people, yes, the lady who phoned was absolutely right, saying, you know, somebody might go along there and they're nearly always offered a cup of tea and a welcome and a natter to make them feel a bit better. If Jeremy was serious about that, that's the kind of discussion he would have been having behind the scenes.
Oh, we don't know what discussions he did. You made me very late for the news, Teresa, and I felt that was a suitable conclusion to the conversation, and you come away from it just thinking, like, what? Unbelievable. However, I'll say that to Jeremy Kite, fair play for ringing in, I suppose. It makes you more courageous than any member of the current cabinet.
Well fed, an aroma